Thank you for joining me on 13 Plus. I'm Cali Lichter, and this is On the Docket, a weekly recap of crime and court in and around the state of Michigan. This week, we bring you into some of the cases gripping West Michigan. To start, we go to D'Angelo Aubrey, a man who was accused of killing two of his former partners. Next, a Muskegon County mother who was charged with manslaughter after prosecutors say she sat on her daughter. And then we have updates on a slew of cases involving the deaths of children. And finally, we have resources if you or someone else are in any of these situations. All that and more is on the docket. We start the show with the case of D'Angelo Aubrey, the man accused of killing two of his former partners on the same day. He's charged with homicide for allegedly killing Sashay Spears and Shalenthia Willis. But first, we start on November 17th, 2025, before a suspect's name had been released to the public. And we were on scene with Spears' family, who says only a coward would take the life of such a beautiful and kind woman.
My sister was attacked and murdered today in her home by an associate that she had a relationship with.
Shamika Knight says she's the one who found her sister, 36-year-old Sashay Spears, killed inside the kitchen of her home on Hoyt Street in Muskegon Heights.
When I opened the door, she was in the kitchen. Her throat was slashed. She had been cut and wasn't breathing. I tried to do chest compressions after I called 911.
Knight and her father, Randy Spears, say Sashay was getting out of a toxic relationship with the man who they believe killed their sister and daughter. Knight told us the man was stalking and harassing her, even putting a car tracker on her car that Knight says the man was there to remove. Soon after, she got a concerning call from her sister.
She told me he was pulling up to take it off. And then the next call I got from her was, "Can you get here?"
Sashay's father says she was a beautiful and independent soul and hopes the man who took her life is brought to justice.
He was a coward, just a plain and simple a coward. She didn't deserve it, and he needed to, come see his justice. We need that. And she was just always feisty, full of life, full of spirit, just all around loving person.
The following day, we learned another victim, Willis, was killed and a suspect is in custody. D'Angelo Aubrey was on parole after a 4-year prison stint for beating Willis. He then allegedly killed her and Spears. Willis's family spoke to our Lauren Baker, who say after they heard the news about Spears, they feared their loved one was next.
She's a good person. She's loving. She loved anybody that know her.
That's Kiaja Willis describing her mom, Shalenthia Willis.
She always had a good time with anybody. And she loved her kids, and she loved her whole family.
She's someone who Willis says was a good person, and her cousin Lafayette Diggs agrees.
She was over here every day. She was doing good.
But now they say that good person was taken away too soon.
And she knew something going to happen to her because she came in my room at 2:30, and she left at 2:45 and told me, "Duder, I love you so much. Call me and make sure I'm safe."
I just wish she would have listened to me.
They say she's the second victim killed by D'Angelo Aubrey, a paroled man now in custody for the death of Willis and Sashay Spears. Spears was found dead Monday night in Muskegon Heights by her sister.
And I heard about Sasha's story, and I kept getting phone calls because we call her Lynn, they're like, "Where's Lynn, where's Lynn?"
The family says Willis had a relationship with Aubrey that involved domestic violence. When they heard what happened to Spears, they feared Willis was next.
And then we get a phone call, they just found the body in the alley on 7th and 6th, but in the alley at Delano. I'm like, I know it's her.
And now the family is mourning the loss of Willis, hoping Aubrey is held accountable for his actions, and hopes everyone remembers Willis for her loving personality.
She's just a loving mama.
The prosecution called this a brutal crime as D'Angelo Aubrey faced a judge virtually for his arraignment. They laid out in court how Aubrey allegedly committed the crimes and planned to go after a third victim. The Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office Chief Trial Attorney says it's one of the more brutal crimes they've encountered in recent memory.
In this case, the two victims were killed within hours of each other in some of the most brutal way a person can be killed.
D'Angelo Aubrey is charged with brutally murdering Sashay Spears and Shalenthia Willis, 2 women he had domestic relationships with, and documenting the crime.
Women in either dead or in the process of dying, and obviously having suffered from just some horrific injuries that really just make this, like I said, this level of brutality is absolutely just shocking and difficult to imagine.
A little before 3 on Monday, Spears was found in her kitchen, bleeding, by her sister. The sister telling 13 on Your Side Spears was in a toxic relationship with Aubrey. Hours later, detectives found Willis dead in her car in Muskegon Heights. She also allegedly had a domestic relationship with him.
In addition, there was videos that were made by the offender that indicate where he actually made admissions that he had killed these individuals, and there was a third one that he was going to after next. The videos also depicted these women either in the process of dying or dead, and they were sent to individuals.
Chief Trial Attorney Matt Roberts says there was a third potential victim who was targeted in Chicago who also had a domestic relationship with Aubrey. He was on parole at the time these murders were committed. Currently, Aubrey is charged with open murder, but the prosecution is seeking first-degree premeditated murder charges.
As our focus here is going to be making sure that this is an individual who never sees the light of day again, who spends every moment of the rest of his life incarcerated for what he has done to these women.
Aubrey was denied bond. As of this taping, Aubrey's case is still in district court, and he is still sitting in Muskegon County Jail. But our next case takes us to another side of Muskegon County, to Fruitport Township, just a week after our last case. Sherry Leak was charged with manslaughter for allegedly sitting on her 11-year-old daughter and killing her. That's next on the docket. On November 24th, 13 on Your Side learned a Muskegon County mother was in custody for allegedly killing her daughter. We learned that woman was Sherry Leak, but we didn't know much beyond that. We went to her neighborhood where a neighbor recounted what she saw the previous day.
We're working on CPR on the phone. Said that the 11-year-old was knocked over during a fight.
Be advised, the person that is doing CPR was the assaulting party.
A Muskegon County mother is in custody in connection with her 11-year-old daughter's death. Sherry Leak is in custody in the Muskegon County Jail awaiting formal charges. Police were called to the home in Fruitport Township Sunday afternoon, according to Deputy Chief Gregory Polson.
The caller, who is the mother of the girl, reported that there had been a physical altercation between her daughter and herself, which resulted in the girl becoming unresponsive.
Fruitport Community Schools identified Leak's daughter as Mila Leak, with the school saying she had a warm smile with a kind heart. Next-door neighbor Christine Hagen-Galloway recounted several instances of Leak allegedly abusing Mila, something she has been concerned about for years.
They fight a lot. I've seen some things I would rather not see, and I've heard things I'd rather not hear.
Hagen-Galloway says her relationship with her neighbor soured, with Leak allegedly yelling at her to never speak to Mila again.
Actually, the little girl's birthday is the 27th of this month. I always give her a birthday present. And her mom said I couldn't give her a birthday present anymore. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't talk to her or anything, or she'd call the police on me. I didn't do anything. I didn't do a thing. But I'm not the only person she's done that to in the neighborhood, because we see what heck going on.
She claims multiple people reported the abuse to Child Protective Services over the years, but nothing had been done until it was too late.
You live in a trailer park, you hear everything in it.
13 on Your Side could not confirm prior instances of alleged abuse at Leak's house, with Deputy Chief Polson saying he did not have information that tells him if there were any previous reports at the address. Sherry Leak was then formally charged the next day with Mila's death. She was charged with manslaughter, given a $100,000 bond despite the judge's feelings. We also met Mila's biological family, who says they had been seeing signs something was wrong, but didn't know it would come to this. On her 11th birthday, prosecutors say Mila Leak's mother, Sherry Leak, sat on her daughter until she was unconscious. Sherry Leak is now officially facing manslaughter for Mila's November 23rd death.
I've worked with CPS cases. If she was overwhelmed, which you can get, she had help. and she didn't reach out for help.
Members of Mila's biological family were in the gallery showing support for Mila and her twin sister Cali. Both Mila and Cali are the names given to the girls after they were adopted by Leek. They say in the past few years they didn't know for sure why Leek became distant.
We had our suspicions based off what other people in the neighborhood was saying they were witnessing, and based off how she acted during the visitations, it was very suspect.
Mila's grandfather says he feels Leek betrayed them.
I would say that something is wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And I do believe that my baby was trying to reach out to us and that she's been silenced.
Manslaughter is different than other charges. There needs to be intent to kill. As of now, the prosecution thinks it's the right charge.
But we're dealing here with an act that, at least at this point, appears to be a grossly negligent act that resulted in the death of this child.
Chief Trial Attorney Matt Roberts says when the final report comes from the medical examiner, Leek could also face child abuse charges, which would be added on to the manslaughter.
If there's an injury inflicted upon a child, that aspect of it, which makes it child abuse, is something that begs for that child abuse charge to be brought.
As for the allegations of previous child abuse in the home, Roberts says if you see something, say something.
I understand that people are saying, well, this might have happened or this might have happened. Like, well, did you report that? And certainly if it was reported, then there are questions to be asked there as well.
Some people were not happy with the bond amount nor the charge. Leek was charged with manslaughter because the prosecution needs to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Leek intended to kill Mila in order to charge her with something like murder. At this time, with the evidence, they feel like manslaughter is the appropriate charge. She is currently not charged with child abuse or other charges related to the case, but that could come later. Leek was able to post that $100,000 bond, but found herself back in court the next day for an increased $300,000 bond. She posted that bond the same day and currently is out of jail as of this taping. Those who were vocal against Leek's bond and her charges met outside the Muskegon County Courthouse to voice their frustration and concerns. The judge increased Leek's bail and ordered her to wear a GPS tracker. Leek is charged with manslaughter, but a group protesting Muskegon says the charge should be more severe and she should not be free.
I want the charges changed. I want the charges changed. I want no bond. You shouldn't be able to get out on bond at all for them, at all. No. She needs to sit in jail. She doesn't look remorsed. She doesn't seems to be bothered by this.
It hurts, especially on her birthday. Like, I don't care. The weather right now is crazy, but this little baby needs justice. And a $100,000 bond was a slap in our face. And if we stand for this, it'll continue to happen.
If convicted, Sherry Leek faces up to 15 years in prison for that manslaughter charge. As the Muskegon County community continues to try and understand what led up to Mila's death, another one of the woman's adopted daughters is coming forward with her story. She says she witnessed verbal and physical abuse in Sherry Leek's household.
Joni Leek says she was close with her adoptive mother, Sherry Leek, when she first started staying at her house. She says in the last few years, however, her adoptive mother became increasingly abusive.
She took Mila, who passed away, in her bedroom and smacked her. And I couldn't do anything about it because I couldn't get to her. Because she had her living room set up where I couldn't get to those kids.
Joni Leek says she lived on and off for several years with the woman accused of sitting on and killing one of her adopted daughters. She says she witnessed and experienced the abuse in Sherry Leek's household firsthand.
It wasn't that bad until COVID-19 started, and that's when she started locking me in my bedroom. She was just doing everything just to set me off.
Joni says Child Protective Services eventually became aware of what she says was happening in the household and paid a visit to both Joni at school and Sherry at the house.
She was acting all nice when I got off the bus because they were there. When they left, Sherry came in my bedroom and said, "So you're telling people lies?"
Anna Mae Lathrop is Joni's biological mother who regained custody of Joni. She says Joni still feels the effects of the abuse to this day. She adds she's deeply worried by what she calls CPS's inaction.
Well, to me, I mean, they've been shut down by people who were supposed to protect them. And if this happened to her, for her to open up, what else happened to them other little girls?
Joni says she was devastated to hear about Mila Leek's death. She believes Sherry Leek is responsible and says she should be punished accordingly.
But I had a bond with her. Like, I did everything with that little girl. Every time she's seen me, like, she hugged me with a big old smile on her face. Like, she had that smile. She had that personality that I fell in love with.
Joni is now fighting for justice on behalf of Mila. She says she's sharing her story to prevent similar tragedies.
I'm, like, trying to be that little girl's voice because she can't no more. She can't open up what she did to her.
Mila has since been cremated, and her grandfather says the family is refusing to turn over her remains, and that's Sherry Leake's family. He also questions why she was cremated just days after her death. David Lee Jones says it hurts that it wasn't blood relatives that determined the fate of the body of his granddaughter Mila, but the family of the woman charged with her death.
No closure. She's gone. Make her disappear, and that's it.
Mila's adopted mother, Sherry Leake, is now charged with manslaughter after prosecutors say she sat on Mila until she was unconscious. While Jones says her biological family is trying to gain custody of Mila's twin sister, Mila's body was put in the custody of Leake's family. Jones says they cremated Mila within days of her death.
I was floored by it because her body was cremated so fast. It's so quick. It was a quick process.
Jones says he was told Leake's family didn't want a service, just cremation. He says their family feels betrayed.
Just get rid of her. It's how I feel. That's how my family feels.
He says they question why they can't have custody of Mila's remains as well.
We feel like we have been betrayed, and now we also feel like we've been mistreated with the closure of this 11-year-old innocent girl that was taken from us.
Jones says he also wants people to know the consequences of giving up your rights.
Since Sherry, the accused, has lost her rights, it went to her parents. And they have not reached back out to us. We've tried to get a hold of them, and so we've been working through funeral homes, trying to get answers.
The family doesn't hate the people who have Mila's remains.
Her family knows we don't hate you all. Matter of fact, we forgive you all. We just like to have proper, formal closure for our biological relative.
The prosecutor's office confirmed Mila was cremated early last week. And as of this taping, like I've been saying, Leake is still out on bond and her case is still in district court. But she's unfortunately not the only parent in West Michigan to be charged in their child's death. Next on the docket, we take you into the courtroom on multiple new cases and updates on child abuse and death cases. One comes after a months-long investigation where a Kent County mother is charged with her daughter's death. Y13 on Your Side spoke to her years ago. The Norton Shore's mother, convicted in one of the worst and most public child abuse cases in West Michigan, is asking for a new trial due to her attorney's alleged inadequate counsel. Shonda Vander Ark was convicted of torturing and killing her teenage son. The evidentiary hearing for Vander Ark began as she and her new attorney argued that her previous lawyer was ineffective and she should get a new trial.
Nearly a year after she was convicted of torturing and killing her son.
Count 1. Charging open murder involving the death of Timothy Ferguson. We find her guilty of first-degree felony murder.
Shonda Vander Ark is arguing the attorney that represented her in that case was ineffective. On Tuesday, again, the hearing was first delayed because her and her attorney argued she was not well enough for the case to begin. But eventually it was ruled she was, and that trial began with the judge.
My question to you is, when these discussions you and Ms. Vander Ark, did she unequivocally say, I am not guilty of any crime?
Her attorney.
Did you guys ever have a discussion? Ms. Vander Ark, you kind of meet these elements of involuntary manslaughter.
And the prosecution.
Did you feel that she was aware about the strategy about attacking the mens rea elements?
All asking her former attorney, Fred Johnson, about the conversations revolving around her innocence or guilt, what possible outcomes could happen in the case, and if she was aware of his strategy. He answering all questions when asked.
What we talked about was she's charged with this homicide, and these are the possible outcomes a jury could legally come to, and these are what they require, and it may be and we talked about it. If we're winning the trial, what do we do?
When that was over, Vander Ark was then asked to take the stand, which she and her attorney once again argued she was not well enough.
I'm miserable.
I'm lightheaded. My head is just splitting.
In the end, the judge ruled she did not have to take the stand at that time. And after a social worker and 2 law enforcement officers were questioned as well, court adjourned for the day.
As of this taping, a continuation date for Vander Ark's Ginther hearing has not been set. A Kent County mother is in custody accused of suffocating her 2-year-old daughter. This comes after a months-long investigation by the Kent County Sheriff's Office involving multiple agencies, some out of state. A judge denied bond for Irene Whitehead as investigators laid out the charges against her.
Nearly 3 months after her 2-year-old, Riley Whitehead, was laid to rest, Irene Whitehead is facing charges for her murder.
In this case, you are charged with 2 counts. Count 1 is homicide, felony murder.
Appearing in court on Monday, Whitehead is charged with felony murder and first-degree child abuse. Her daughter, Riley, died on September 3rd of this year. The judge for the arraignment gave Whitehead no bond, saying there was clear evidence of proof of guilt in the case.
I do find that based on the statements in the probable cause affidavit, proof of guilt is evident and presumption is great in this matter. And so I think that this is an appropriate case to deny bond.
13 on Your Side obtained the probable cause documents, which shows numerous conversations between Whitehead and detectives where Whitehead admits to killing her child. In part of one conversation, detectives ask, "What are your intentions?" She answers that she wouldn't be here anymore. The detectives asking her intentions again, she answers saying that she'd die. Later, going on to say she killed her. 13 on Your Side interviewed Whitehead back in 2023, where she claimed her child was suffering from a rare variant of a common virus. When asked about why she kept putting her child in the hospital, she said, quote, "'Cause there was always people around. I didn't want them finding out what I was doing, so I'd make it look like a breathing episode." She then later admitting to suffocating her child. Even with these conversations, the judge says she remains innocent until proven guilty.
Ms. Whitehead, you will remain in the Kent County Jail pending those hearings.
Along with no bond, she entered Whitehead into a not guilty plea.
We also found a crowdsourced fundraiser from 2021 for her 2-month-old child named Leo that she had created. We asked the Kent County Sheriff's Office if Whitehead was being investigated for that son's death, and officials told us that it's an open investigation and they cannot comment any information at this time. Now an update, a Grand Rapids mother accused of setting a deadly fire at her home with 3 daughters inside will go to trial. Raquanda Singleton appeared in Grand Rapids District Court for her preliminary hearing. One of the girls, 12-year-old Shemaya Stewart, died from her injuries 2 days after the fire in January 2025. Prosecutors called first responders to the stand. Defense attorneys argued that because of Singleton's mental state, the questioning should have stopped. But the judge ruled she is competent. Singleton's case is now headed to trial in the Kent County Circuit Court. Her next court date has not been scheduled. An Oceana County mother and her boyfriend are facing several child abuse charges related to the death of her 7-month-old son, Maverick. His father wants other people to know their story. 7 months after Maverick Bauk died,
update, baby 15 pounds, lives in a bathtub, possibly got water in the lungs.
Just kind of shock.
His father, Nathan Bauk, is hoping the 2 people charged in connection with his son's death face justice.
That's all I'm looking for. That's all I'm praying for. You know, that's all I want out of this. Is I want him to have a voice.
Bauk alleges it was the actions of Maverick's mother, Elizabeth Hogan, and her boyfriend, Devin Brown Fowler, that killed him on May 4th. They are facing charges of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th degree child abuse, but not homicide.
I feel like the charges should be a little bit harsher. Obviously, we have a lot of evil out in this world right now.
According to court records, it says Hogan knowingly or intentionally committed an act that was likely to cause serious and unreasonable physical harm, mental harm, or injury, and did result in physical harm. That act, according to the complaint, was leaving Maverick in the care of Brown Fowler and/or failing to notice and treat repeated blunt force trauma.
And it should never lead up to deadly force, but, you know, to me, like, deadly force, you know, it's almost the same as murder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and from what I've seen, you know, in my investigating of it, blunt force trauma, you know, that's deadly force.
Bauk wishes Hogan would have checked who she was letting into their son's life.
You know, if you're a young mom, do a background check, you know, check the man or whatever that you're with, you know, so you know who they actually are.
Bauk says Maverick was an awesome child who had a big impact on his life. And next on the docket, it's been a heavy episode, but we always try to go beyond the story. From personal protection order changes to mental health resources, we have more on the docket next. The families of Sashay Spears and Shalenthia Willis say the women killed were both victims of domestic violence. State lawmakers are working on bipartisan legislation to address domestic violence, specifically personal protection orders or PPOs. Our Nick Nelson looked into the bills and into D'Angelo Aubrey's criminal history.
He was locked up for 4 years, and when he got out, but he was writing letters to my mama telling my mama that he's going to kill her when he get out.
Shalenthia Willis's daughter told us Tuesday D'Angelo Aubrey was out on parole after serving prison time for pistol whipping her mother. State Senator Stephanie Chang of Detroit says instances of domestic violence such as this are all too common. She spoke about the murder of Latricia Brown, who was killed by her ex-husband in the basement of a Detroit hospital in August.
It came out that actually she had a second personal protection order, a PPO, against him that was never served. And so this really brought more awareness to the fact that in Michigan right now, many agencies that serve PPOs are actually charging for them.
That's why Chang helped introduce a pair of bills aiming to make the service of PPOs free and immediate in every instance.
We actually did pass the bills out of committee last week and are hopeful that we can get this moving in the full Senate in December. There's a really good bipartisan bicameral effort going on here, and we're going to work really hard to get it done.
Chang says, however, the work doesn't stop there when it comes to addressing domestic violence in the state of Michigan. She says advocates must continue to raise awareness, citing her concerns that many survivor programs are losing funding.
Organizations are trying to do more and serve more people with less money when the reverse should be happening. We should be trying to do more prevention work and making sure that we're adequately funding these organizations that support domestic violence survivors.
I spoke further with the Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office about the special team through the office to help victims of domestic violence. They want victims to know there are resources through the Prosecutor's Office to stop the violence before it escalates. The man charged with killing 2 former partners in Muskegon County was known to the prosecutor's office for domestic violence. They're hoping to gain the trust of more victims so they don't have the same fate.
Maybe we are making some progress where there could have been other cases similar to this, and unfortunately, you know, this happened, but maybe there are other cases that we were able to prevent through this task force.
D'Angelo Aubrey is charged with brutally murdering Sashay Spears and Shalenthia Willis, 2 women he had relationships with. Prosecutors say he filmed the women dying or already dead and shared the video. Aubrey was on parole at the time of the killing, spending 4 years in prison for beating Willis, according to MLive.
That's, I think, what's the hardest part, is because you're like, what could we have done anything? Could we have rebuilt that relationship any further where she could have called?
Senior Assistant Prosecutor Katie Norton is a part of a team leading the office's Stop Violence Against Women program, bringing together prosecutors and law enforcement to specialize in domestic violence cases.
But it does feel that we're making a difference when you do get those phone calls from victims that are saying that they're ready to leave and that you're able to assist them in that maybe you've stopped something from happening in the future.
Established in Muskegon County in 2019, Norton says it's a model in the state. The task force takes a victim-centered approach, staying with the victims throughout the case and letting them do things on their own time.
Just trying to get as many services around them as possible to kind of help them, because it's a scary situation. You're changing everything about your life potentially.
Although the decision to parole Aubrey was not up to the prosecutor's office, they say this time they want him locked up for life. Mental health experts dedicated to helping West Michigan families say they are seeing more stressed out parents asking for help. While there's no telling if counseling could have prevented the recent child deaths, it's important to know there are resources available.
We've seen a dramatic increase of single parents bringing in their children.
Across West Michigan, counselor Teresa Slabacorn says she's seeing more parents, especially single mothers overwhelmed by stress, financial pressure, and untreated mental health struggles. At the Life Center in Grand Rapids, the family counseling nonprofit works daily with families trying to stay afloat.
It's very common for us to have the mom in one session and 3 children in 3 other sessions with our staff. We get a lot of phone calls from people who are struggling with a lot of mental confusion, negative self-talk, self-hatred, and they're trapped. They can't get out. They don't know what to do.
Slabacorn says internal pressure and outside stressors can pile up quickly. And when parents don't get help, the consequences can be serious.
If we don't look out for our own health as a parent, what happens is eventually the pain and the pressure that's inside of us, it's going to come out one way or the other. And really what we do is we do desperate things for a cry for help. And a lot of times we accidentally hurt our own children.
Cost for counseling is often a barrier. For immediate help, you can call or text 988 or text HOME to 741-741 to connect with the crisis text line. The Life Center also offers low-cost options.
We have a sliding scale. We start there, and then if people are like, well, we can't do the base rate of that, then we ask them what they can do, and we work from there with them.
But getting help starts with taking care of yourself first. And though the mental health system can feel overloaded, she says parents shouldn't wait.
Call somebody you feel comfortable with. Call a counseling office. Get help. Mine, anybody's.
And her message to any parent feeling hopeless:
you absolutely matter and your life is valuable. Do not give up. Nothing is impossible.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of On the Docket on 13 Plus. We have new episodes releasing every week, taking you into the courtroom for the latest updates and deep dives on crime in and around West Michigan. In the meantime, we'll bring you the latest on crime in court, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com. And when breaking news affects you and your community, we stream live on 13 Plus with what you need to know right when you need to know. We'll see you next time with updates on what's on the docket.